The maintenance tunnels beneath the Galactic Academy were dark and quiet. Lee Do-hyun crawled through the narrow space, his tool belt clinking softly against the metal walls. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he checked the air circulation system. This was his job every day for the past 3 years. Fix things. Keep the academy running. Stay invisible. Above him, thousands of alien students walked through bright hallways. They came from hundreds of different worlds. Some had blue skin and 4 arms. Others looked like walking trees with glowing eyes. A few resembled giant insects with wings that sparkled like diamonds. All of them were here to learn about the galaxy and its history. Do-hyun was different from all of them. He was human, but nobody knew that secret. He adjusted the genetic mask on his face. The small device changed how others saw him. To everyone else, he looked like a common mixed-species being. His real human features were hidden. His brown hair appeared green. His normal eyes looked yellow. Even his height seemed different. The mask had cost him everything he owned 5 years ago, but it kept him alive. In this galaxy, being human was dangerous. Everyone believed humans were extinct, dead, gone forever. Do-hyun finished his work on the air system and crawled toward the next section. His portable scanner beeped softly. The grand amphitheater needed attention. One of the ventilation units was making strange noises. The grand amphitheater was the academy's most important room. Famous professors gave lectures there. Important guests spoke to thousands of students. Do-hyun had worked on its systems many times, but always when it was empty. Today was different. As he climbed through the ventilation shaft above the amphitheater, he heard a voice echoing below. Someone was giving a lecture. Do-hyun paused. He was not supposed to work during lectures. But the ventilation unit was making loud, grinding sounds. If it broke completely, the whole system would fail. The amphitheater would become too hot for most species. He decided to work quietly. Nobody would notice him up in the dark shaft. Below, a tall alien with purple skin and 6 arms was speaking to a crowd of students. Professor Veltak was famous throughout the academy. He knew more about galactic history than almost anyone alive. His voice was deep and confident. "Today we will discuss one of the galaxy's greatest tragedies," Professor Veltak said. "The complete extinction of a species that once showed great promise. I speak, of course, about the humans of Earth." Do-hyun froze. His wrench slipped from his hand and clattered against the metal shaft. He grabbed it quickly, hoping nobody heard. His heart started beating faster. "The humans lived on a small planet they called Earth," the professor continued. "This world orbited a yellow star in a quiet part of the galaxy. For thousands of years, humans developed their civilization. They built cities. They created art. They even began to explore space." Students in the amphitheater took notes on their electronic tablets. Some recorded the lecture with small floating devices. All of them listened carefully. This was important. Information for their studies. However, the humans made a terrible mistake, Professor Veltak said. They did not understand their star well enough. 50 years ago, their sun became unstable. It grew larger and hotter. The humans tried to escape, but they were too slow. Their technology was not advanced enough. Do-hyun pressed his face against the ventilation grate. He could see the professor clearly now. Veltak was using a holographic projector to show images of space. A yellow star appeared in the air above the students. Around it, a small blue and green planet slowly spun. "This is Earth as it appeared in the final days," Veltak explained. "Beautiful. Full of life, but doomed." The holographic star suddenly expanded. It grew red and angry. The small planet was swallowed by flames. In seconds, it was gone. Nothing remained but empty space and burning gas. The entire human species died in this disaster, the professor said sadly. Every man, woman, and child Their cities, their art, their dreams. All of it turned to dust and fire. Today, nothing remains of Earth or its people. They exist only in our historical records. Many students looked upset by this story. A few wiped tears from their eyes. Others shook their heads in sympathy. The idea of an entire species disappearing was horrible to imagine. But Do-hyun knew something that nobody else in that room knew. The professor was wrong. Completely wrong. Earth still existed. Humans were still alive. Do-hyun knew this because he had been born on Earth. He had lived there for 18 years. He remembered the blue sky and white clouds. He remembered the green forests and deep oceans. He remembered his family and friends. He had left Earth during what he thought was a temporary evacuation. Government officials said there was political trouble. Some alien species were threatening war. All civilians needed to leave until the situation was safe. Do-hyun and thousands of other humans had boarded evacuation ships. They were told they would return home soon. But weeks became months. Months became years. The promised return never happened. Slowly, the evacuated humans were scattered across the galaxy. Many disappeared. Some found work on distant planets. Others simply vanished. Communication between the survivors became impossible. Do-hyun had assumed the worst. Maybe there had been a war. Maybe Earth was damaged. But he never imagined that the rest of the galaxy believed his home world was completely destroyed. Are there any questions about the human extinction? Professor Velthak asked the students. A young alien with blue skin raised her hand. Professor, did any humans survive the disaster? None, Velthak replied firmly. The stellar collapse happened too quickly. Even if some humans had been traveling in space, they would have lost their home planet and their entire culture. Without Earth, the human species could not continue to exist. Do-hyun gripped the ventilation grate so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Everything the professor said was wrong. But why? Was this simply a mistake? Had the galaxy received bad information about Earth's fate, or was something much worse happening? The destruction of Earth reminds us why space exploration is so dangerous, Velthak continued. Many species have been lost to cosmic disasters, supernovas, black holes, stellar collapse. This is why the galactic hegemony works so hard to protect inhabited worlds. They monitor dangerous stars and evacuate planets when necessary. The galactic hegemony. Do-hyun had heard that name before. They were the most powerful government in the galaxy. They controlled trade routes and military forces. Most smaller species obeyed their laws and followed their guidance. But Do-hyun was starting to wonder if the hegemony could be trusted. The lecture ended and students began filing out of the amphitheater. Professor Velthak gathered his holographic projector and teaching materials. Soon the great room was empty and quiet. Do-hyun remained in the ventilation shaft for a long time. His mind raced with questions and doubts. If Earth still existed, why? Did everyone believe it was gone? Who had spread this false information? And most importantly, what had really happened to his home world? He needed answers, but getting them would be dangerous. If he asked too many questions, people might become suspicious. They might discover his true identity. And if the galaxy really believed humans were extinct, being found alive might make him a target. Still, he had to know the truth. Somewhere out there, Earth was waiting. His real home, his real people. And somehow, he was going to find a way back to them. The ventilation unit continued making grinding noises. Do-hyun picked up his wrench and got back to work. But his mind was no longer focused on repairs. He was planning something much more important. He was going to uncover the truth about Earth, no matter how dangerous it might be. 3 days had passed since the lecture, but Do-hyun could not stop thinking about Professor Velthak's words. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the holographic image of Earth burning. Every time he worked in the tunnels, he heard the professor's voice saying that humans were extinct. It was all lies. But why would anyone lie about something so terrible? During his lunch break, Do-yoon sat alone in the maintenance workers' cafeteria. The food was bland and gray, designed to be safe for all species. Around him, other workers talked about their daily repairs and complained about difficult jobs. Nobody paid attention to him. That was exactly how he wanted it. After finishing his meal, Do-yoon walked to the Academy's central library. The building was enormous, with thousands of computer terminals and millions of digital files. Students from every species came here to research their assignments. Do-hyun had been to the library many times before, but only to fix broken equipment. Today was different. Today, he was going to search for information about Earth. He found an empty terminal in a quiet corner. His maintenance badge gave him basic access to the library's database. It was not much, but it might be enough to find some answers. He typed Earth into the search system. Hundreds of results appeared on the screen. Most were copies of Professor Velthak's lectures or similar academic papers. All of them said the same thing. Earth was destroyed 50 years ago. Humans were extinct. No survivors remained. Do-hyun frowned and tried a different search. Human evacuation. This time, only a few results appeared. They were official reports from the galactic hegemony. According to these documents, some humans had been rescued from Earth before the disaster, but all of them died later from a disease that only affected their species. That was also a lie. Do-hyun was healthy. He had never suffered from any special human disease. He tried searching for Sol system, the name of Earth's star system. The results were mostly scientific papers about stellar collapse. They all described how Earth's sun had become unstable and destroyed everything nearby. But Do-hyun remembered his home star. It had been yellow and steady. There were no signs of instability when he left Earth. The evacuation ships had told everyone that the sun was perfectly normal. Something was very wrong with these records. Do-hyun spent the next 2 hours reading every file he could find about humans and Earth. Every single document told the same story. Disaster, death, extinction. But none of them felt real to him. They read like reports written by people who had never actually seen Earth or met a human. As he read, a security alert flashed on his screen. Unusual access pattern detected. Please verify your identity. Do-hyun's heart started beating faster. He quickly logged out of the terminal and walked away. Someone was monitoring the library's computer system. His searches had triggered their attention. He needed to be more careful. That evening, Do-hyun returned to his small apartment in the workers' housing complex. The room was tiny and basic, but it was private. Nobody bothered him there. He lay on his narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. The genetic mask on his face made his skin itch, but he could never take it off. Even alone in his room, he was not safe. The building had security cameras and listening devices. A soft knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Do-hyun sat up quickly. Nobody ever visited him. He had no friends at the academy. He preferred it that way. The knock came again, more insistent this time. Do-hyun walked to the door and looked through the small viewing window. A young woman stood in the hallway. She had blue-tinted skin and silver hair, features common among people from the water worlds. She looked nervous and kept glancing around. "Who is it?" Do-hyun asked through the door. "My name is Park Min-ji," the woman replied. "I am a student at the academy. I need to talk to you about your library searches today." Do-hyun's blood turned cold. Had security sent her to investigate him? Was his secret about to be discovered? "I do not know what you mean," he said. "Please," Min-ji insisted. "I know you were researching Earth and humans. I was doing the same thing. We need to talk." Against his better judgment, Do-hyun opened the door. Min-ji stepped inside quickly and looked around his small apartment. She seemed genuinely nervous. not like a security agent trying to trap him. You are taking a big risk coming here, Do-hyun said. If someone sees you visiting a maintenance worker, they will ask questions. Minji nodded. I know, but this is important. I have been studying extinct civilizations for my xenoarchaeology project. I chose humans as my research topic, but something is wrong with all the official records. Wrong how? Do-hyun asked, trying to keep his voice calm. The timeline does not make sense, Minji explained. According to the hegemony reports, Earth's sun became unstable very suddenly. But stellar collapse does not work that way. Stars show warning signs for thousands of years before they become dangerous. There should be scientific records of those warnings. She pulled out a small tablet and showed him several charts and graphs. I have been studying Earth's sun using long-range telescope data. The star appears completely normal. It shows no signs of recent instability or collapse. Do-hyun stared at the tablet screen. The information confirmed what he had always suspected. Earth's sun was fine, healthy, stable. But that is impossible, he said, pretending to be confused. Everyone knows what happened to Earth. That is what I thought too, Minji replied. But I keep finding small inconsistencies in the official story, dates that do not match, scientific data that contradicts the reports, references to human settlements that were supposedly destroyed years before the disaster. She looked directly at Do-hyun. Someone has been lying about what really happened to Earth and the humans. Do-hyun felt a moment of panic. Did she suspect his true identity? Was this some kind of test? Why are you telling me this? He asked carefully. Because the library's security system flagged your searches today, Minji explained. You were looking for the same information I have been researching. I thought maybe you had found something I missed. I am just a maintenance worker, Do-hyun said. I was curious about the lecture Professor Veltak gave. Nothing more. Minji studied his face. Maybe. But your search pattern was very thorough. You knew exactly what to look for. Most people would have accepted the official records and moved on. She was too smart. Do-hyun realized he had made a mistake by being so focused in his searches. A casual maintenance worker would not have dug so deep into the historical records. I like to learn about history, he said weakly. So do I, Minji replied. And I think someone has been rewriting history to hide the truth about Earth. She leaned forward. I have been tracking the sources of all the human extinction reports. Every single one traces back to the same place, the Hegemony Historical Commission. They control what information gets stored in official databases across the galaxy. So, Do-hyun asked, so they have the power to make any story seem true, Minji said. If they wanted to convince everyone that a planet was destroyed, they could create fake evidence and distribute it to every library and school in the galaxy. The idea was terrifying. If the hegemony could control historical records, they could hide anything. They could make entire worlds disappear from galactic memory. But why would they do that? Do-hyun asked. I do not know yet, Minji admitted. But I am going to find out, and I think you should help me. That sounds dangerous. It is dangerous, she agreed. But if someone is lying about the extinction of an entire species, we need to know why. This could be bigger than just Earth and the humans. Do-hyun looked at the young student. She was brave and intelligent. She had already discovered more about the conspiracy than he had. But trusting her meant taking a huge risk. If she betrayed him, his secret would be exposed. On the other hand, he needed help. His maintenance worker access could only get him so far. Minji was a student with better computer privileges and research skills. What do you want me to do? He asked finally. Minji smiled for the first time since entering his room. Help me access the restricted archives. Your maintenance badge might give you entry to areas where students cannot go. Together we can find the real truth about Earth. Do-hyun nodded slowly. All right, but we have to be very careful. If we get caught, we will not get caught, Minji said confidently. I have a plan, As she explained her ideas for accessing the restricted files, Do-Yun felt a mix of hope and fear. For the first time in years, someone else was asking the same questions he had been carrying alone. Maybe together they could uncover the truth about Earth and the humans. Maybe he could finally learn what had really happened to his home world. But first, they would have to survive the investigation. 2 weeks had passed since Do-Hyun and Minji began working together. They met every few days in different locations around the academy. The library storage room, empty classrooms after hours, maintenance tunnels where only Do-Hyun had access. Their investigation was making progress, but it was also becoming more dangerous. Minji had found inconsistencies in dozens of historical records, not just about Earth, but about other supposedly extinct species too. The Kalahari people of the Outer Rim, the crystal beings of Nexus 7, the plant folk of the Green Worlds. All of them had supposedly died from natural disasters, but the evidence felt manufactured. Do-Hyun had used his maintenance access to search restricted computer systems. He found backup files that contradicted the official stories. References to refugee camps, supply shipments to quarantined worlds, military reports about containment operations. Someone was definitely hiding the truth about many missing species. But their searches were attracting attention. Security alerts appeared more frequently on the computer systems. Minji noticed academy guards asking questions about students who spent too much time in the archives. Do-Hyun saw extra patrols in areas where he usually worked alone. They needed help from someone with more experience and better resources. That help came from an unexpected source. Do-Hyun was repairing a broken ventilation unit in the academy's shipping dock when a tall man approached him. The stranger had dark hair and weathered hands that showed years of manual work. His clothes were simple but clean, the uniform of a small cargo company. "You have been asking dangerous questions," the man said quietly. Do-Hyun dropped his wrench. It clattered loudly on the metal floor. "I do not know what you mean." "My name is Choi Yun-ho," the stranger continued. "I run cargo ships between academy worlds. I also help people who need to disappear." Do-Hyun looked around nervously. The shipping dock was mostly empty, but a few workers were loading containers nearby. "Why are you talking to me?" "Because someone told me you might be ready to learn the truth," Yun-ho replied. "About Earth, about humans, about what really happened 50 years ago." The words hit Do-Hyun like a physical blow. Did this stranger know? His secret? Had his genetic mask failed somehow? "I am not interested in conspiracy theories," Do-Hyun said, trying to sound dismissive. Yun-ho smiled sadly. "Neither was I, until I learned that my cargo runs were carrying supplies to worlds that officially did not exist. Food shipments to dead planets, medical equipment for extinct species." He pulled out a small data pad and showed Do-Hyun a shipping manifest. The document listed deliveries to coordinates in the Sol system, Earth's location. "This shipment went out 3 months ago," Yun-ho explained. "Medical supplies and construction materials. According to the official records, nothing exists at those coordinates. But someone keeps ordering supplies sent there." Do-Hyun stared at the manifest. His home world was not only alive, it was actively importing goods from other parts of the galaxy. "Who is ordering these supplies?" he asked. "The hegemony," Yun-ho replied. "They have been running cargo operations to dozens of supposedly dead worlds. I started asking questions about where these shipments really go. That is when I met others who were investigating the same mystery." "Others?" Yun-ho nodded toward a small cargo ship docked at the far end of the platform. "People who have learned that the galaxy is not what we have been told. Would you like to meet them?" Every instinct told Do-Hyun this was a trap, but he had already taken so many risks. And if there were other people who knew the truth about Earth, he had to meet them. "What about my friend?" he asked. "The student who has been helping me research." "Bring her," Yun-ho said. We need people with her research skills. That evening, Do-hyun and Minji met Yunho at his cargo ship. The vessel was old but well-maintained. Inside, they found a small group of beings from different species. All of them looked nervous but determined. Yunho introduced them to the group's leader, a woman with pale skin and sharp eyes. Her name was Kim Sora, and she had once worked for the Hegemony Intelligence Service. I spent 15 years believing I was protecting the galaxy, Sora explained as they sat around a small table in the ship's meeting room. I helped investigate threats to galactic security. I wrote reports about dangerous species and unstable worlds. She paused and looked directly at Do-hyun. It took me too long to realize that I was helping to destroy innocent civilizations. What do you mean? Minji asked. Sora activated a holographic display above the table. Images appeared in the air, maps of the galaxy showing hundreds of worlds. The Hegemony identifies species that might threaten their control, she explained. Usually these are civilizations that develop too quickly or show too much independence. The Hegemony marks them as dangerous and begins planning their removal. Red markers appeared on many of the worlds in the hologram. They do not usually destroy the planets completely, Sora continued. That would be wasteful. Instead, they isolate the troublesome species and exploit their resources. They tell the rest of the galaxy that these civilizations died from natural disasters. But why? Do-hyun asked, though he was starting to understand the horrible answer. Control, Sora replied. Fear. If other species believe that civilizations can be destroyed by cosmic disasters, they become more dependent on the hegemony for protection. They accept hegemony oversight and regulation without question. The hologram zoomed in on the Sol system. Earth appeared as a small blue dot surrounded by red warning markers. Earth was targeted 50 years ago because humans were developing too quickly, Sora explained. Your species was making contact with other civilizations. You were forming independent trade agreements. Some hegemony leaders believed humans would become a rival power within a few generations. Do-hyun felt sick. His people had been condemned not for doing something wrong, but for being successful. So they quarantined Earth and told everyone we were dead, he said quietly. Sora nodded. The few humans who were off-world when the quarantine began were scattered across the galaxy. Most of them learned to hide their identity like you have been doing. The hegemony wanted everyone to believe the human species was extinct. But we are not extinct, Minji said. There are still humans alive. More than you might think, Yunho added. I have helped dozens of hidden humans over the years. They work as mechanics, teachers, miners, traders. They live quiet lives and try not to attract attention. How many? Do-hyun asked. Thousands, scattered across hundreds of worlds, Sora replied. Maybe tens of thousands. It is hard to know for sure because most of them are too afraid to reveal themselves. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Do-hyun had spent years believing he was one of the last survivors of his species. Now he learned that many other humans were alive and hiding throughout the galaxy. What about Earth itself? Minji asked. What is happening there? Sora's expression became grim. The planet has been turned into a resource extraction site. The human population is kept in controlled settlements and forced to work in mining and manufacturing operations. They are told that the rest of the galaxy was destroyed in a great war and that the hegemony is protecting the last survivors. That is horrible, Minji whispered. It gets worse, Sora continued. According to my former colleagues in Hegemony Intelligence, they are planning something called the Final Harvest. Within the next few years, they intend to relocate Earth's entire population to work camps on distant worlds. Then they will destroy the planet to eliminate all evidence of what they have done. Do-hyun stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. We have to stop them. How? Yunho asked. The hegemony controls the military forces of half the galaxy. They have weapons that can destroy entire star systems. We exposed the truth. Minji said firmly. We show the galaxy what the hegemony has been doing. Other species will not support them if they learn about the lies and the genocide. Sora smiled for the first time since the meeting began. That is exactly what we have been planning to do, but we need proof. Evidence that cannot be dismissed or explained away. What kind of evidence? Do-hyun asked. Real-time images from Earth, Sora replied. Communications from the quarantined populations, hegemony documents that admit to the deception. She looked around the table at each of them. Getting that evidence will be extremely dangerous. We would have to infiltrate hegemony installations and travel to restricted space. Some of us might not survive. But if we succeed, Minji asked. If we succeed, we can save Earth and expose the biggest lie in galactic history, Sora said. We can free not just the humans, but all the other species that the hegemony has hidden away. Do-hyun thought about his family and friends back on Earth. For 50 years, they had been slaves without knowing it. They deserved to know the truth about the galaxy. They deserved to be free. I will help, he said. So will I, Minji added. Yunho and the others around the table nodded their agreement. Then we begin planning immediately, Sora said. Our first step is to locate a hegemony monitoring station that tracks all traffic to quarantined worlds. If we can access their surveillance network, we can get the proof we need. As the group began discussing details and strategies, Do-hyun felt something he had not experienced in years: hope. For the first time since leaving Earth, he was part of something larger than himself, a movement that could change the galaxy and free his people. The fight for truth was about to begin. The monitoring station was located in deep space, 3 days' travel from the Academy. Sora had provided them with its exact coordinates and security codes from her time with Hegemony Intelligence. The station was automated, with only a small crew that rotated monthly. Yunho's cargo ship approached the station slowly, disguised as a routine supply delivery. On the ship's manifest, they were listed as inspection technicians, checking equipment for safety violations. It was a boring cover story that usually avoided too much attention. Do-hyun, Minji, and Sora wore fake identification badges and carried tool cases filled with real inspection equipment. If anyone checked their credentials, they would appear to be exactly what they claimed to be. Remember, Sora whispered as they prepared to dock, we have maybe 2 hours before the next security patrol arrives. Get the surveillance data and get out. The monitoring station was larger than it appeared from outside. Long corridors connected multiple levels of computer equipment and communication arrays. Thousands of screens displayed information from across the galaxy. Most showed empty space, but some tracked cargo ships and military vessels. A bored-looking technician met them at the docking bay. He was a Zentari, a species with green skin and large eyes. His uniform was wrinkled, and he smelled like he had not bathed recently. You are early, technician complained. The safety inspection was not scheduled until next month. Emergency audit, Sora replied smoothly. We received reports of equipment failures in your sector. Headquarters wants everything checked immediately. The technician sighed. Fine, but stay out of restricted areas. I do not want to deal with security alerts. He led them through the station's main corridors, pointing out different systems and explaining basic operations. Most of the equipment was standard: long-range sensors, communication relays, data storage units. But Sora knew what to look for. While the technician was distracted explaining a particularly complex scanner array, she guided Do-hyun and Minji toward the restricted section of the station. The quarantine monitoring systems are kept separate from regular equipment, she explained quietly. They track all traffic to and from isolated worlds. The data is stored in a secure vault 2 levels down. They took an elevator to the station's lower levels. The corridors here were darker and quieter. Fewer technicians worked in this section, and those they passed barely looked up from their tasks. The secure vault was protected by an electronic lock that required special access codes. Sora pulled out a small device that looked like a standard inspection scanner. In reality, it was a code-breaking tool that could bypass most hegemony security systems. "This will take a few minutes," she said, connecting the device to the vault's lock mechanism. While they waited, Do-hyun and Minji kept watch in the corridor. The station seemed peaceful and routine, but they all knew how quickly that could change. The vault door finally opened with a soft hiss. Inside, rows of computer servers stored terabytes of surveillance data from across the galaxy. Each server was labeled with coordinates that corresponded to different star systems. Do-hyun found the server marked with Sol system coordinates, Earth's location. His hands trembled slightly as he connected a portable storage device to download the surveillance files. "How long will this take?" Minji asked nervously. 10 minutes for a complete download," Sora replied, checking her scanner. "But we only need the recent files to prove Earth still exists." The download began, copying months of surveillance data onto their portable device. On the small screen, Do-hyun could see file names scrolling past: surface scans, orbital traffic reports, population surveys, communication intercepts. All of it proved that Earth was very much alive. Halfway through the download, an alarm began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and an automated voice announced, "Security breach in restricted area. All personnel report to stations." "Someone discovered we are here," Sora said grimly. "We need to finish this quickly." Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridors above them. Security guards were searching the station level by level. Soon they would reach the vault. "Can we speed up the download?" Minji asked. Sora checked the progress indicator. 5 more minutes. We might have enough data already, but the complete files would be better evidence." The footsteps were getting closer. Do-hyun could hear guards shouting orders to each other as they searched rooms and checked access logs. "There!" one guard called out. "Someone used unauthorized access codes on Vault 7. They might still be down there." "We have to go now," Sora whispered urgently. But Do-hyun shook his head. "Not yet. I need to see this." He activated one of the surveillance files that had already downloaded. A 3-dimensional image appeared above the portable device, showing Earth from orbit. The planet looked different than Do-hyun remembered. Much of the surface was covered by massive industrial complexes. Gray mining facilities stretched across what used to be green forests. Huge cargo ships moved between the planet and orbital stations, carrying raw materials away from Earth, but it was definitely alive. Cities still existed, though they were smaller and more controlled than before. Millions of people lived and worked on the surface, unaware that the rest of the galaxy believed they were dead. "My home," Do-hyun whispered. "We can save it," Minji said. "But only if we survive long enough to share this evidence." More files downloaded quickly. Communication intercepts showed that Earth's population was told they were the last survivors of a galactic war. Hegemony administrators managed their daily lives and work assignments. Production reports detailed how much metal, food, and manufactured goods were being extracted from the planet. Most disturbing were the files labeled Final Harvest Preparation. These documents outlined plans to relocate Earth's entire population within 2 years. Transport ships were already being assembled. Work camps on distant worlds were being expanded to accommodate millions of new prisoners. The guards' voices were very close now. "Check all the vaults. Someone broke into the surveillance archives." Sora disconnected the storage device even though the download was not complete. "We have enough evidence. Time to leave." They closed the vault and hurried toward an emergency exit that Sora had identified during her intelligence service days. The route led through maintenance tunnels that bypassed the main corridors where guards were searching. Behind them, they heard shouts as security discovered the open vault. "Intruders in Vault 7. Lock down all exits." The station's emergency systems activated. Blast doors sealed the main corridors and docking bays. But the maintenance tunnels remained open, Hegemony designers had never expected infiltrators to use such uncomfortable routes. They crawled through narrow spaces between equipment racks and power conduits. The air was hot and filled with the smell of burning electronics. Minji's blue-tinted skin was covered with sweat, and Do-Yun's genetic mask felt like it was melting. After 20 minutes of difficult crawling, they reached an auxiliary docking port where Yunho was waiting with his cargo ship. The pilot looked relieved to see them. "I heard the alarms," he said as they climbed aboard quickly. "Did you get what we needed?" Sora held up the storage device. "Hours of surveillance data proving that Earth and dozens of other worlds are still inhabited, plus hegemony documents about their final harvest plan. Then let us leave before they organize a real pursuit," Yunho replied, starting the ship's engines. As they pulled away from the monitoring station, Do-Yun watched through the cargo ship's windows. Hegemony patrol vessels were approaching from several directions, but Yunho's ship was already jumping to hyperspace. They had escaped with the proof they needed. Now came the much harder task of convincing the galaxy to believe it. "Where do we go now?" Minji asked. "Back to the Academy," Sora replied. "We need to broadcast this evidence to as many people as possible. The Galactic Academy's communication system can reach millions of students and faculty across hundreds of worlds." "Will they believe us?" Do-Hyun asked. "Some will," Sora said. "Others will dismiss it as fake evidence created by terrorists. But once people start asking questions, the truth becomes harder to hide." During the journey back to the Academy, they reviewed the downloaded files more carefully. The evidence was overwhelming. Not just about Earth, but about 17 other worlds that were supposedly extinct. All of them were being exploited by the hegemony, while the galaxy believed they were dead. "This is genocide," Minji said quietly as she read through the population control reports. "They have enslaved entire species." "And they are planning to make it worse," Sora added, showing them the final harvest documents. "Earth is just the beginning. Once they relocate the human population, they plan to do the same thing to the other quarantined worlds." Do-Yun stared at the surveillance images of his home planet. Somewhere down there, his family might still be alive. His friends from childhood might be working in those mining complexes, believing they were the last survivors of their species. He had the proof that could save them, but using it would expose his own secret identity and put him in terrible danger. As they approached the Academy, Do-Yun made his decision. His people's freedom was worth any risk to himself. "I know how to get this evidence to the entire galaxy," he said, "but I will need your help, and it will probably get us all killed." Sora smiled grimly. Professor Veltak was scheduled to give another lecture about extinct civilizations in 3 days. This time the topic was Lost Worlds of the Outer Rim. Students from across the galaxy would attend in person, while millions more would watch. Through the Academy's live broadcast system, it was the perfect opportunity to reveal the truth to the largest possible audience. Do-Hyun spent 2 days preparing for the most dangerous moment of his life. He studied the Academy's broadcast equipment and memorized the security codes he would need. He practiced what he would say and how he would present the evidence they had gathered. Most importantly, he prepared to remove his genetic mask for the first time in years. The device had hidden his human features so long that he had almost forgotten what his real face looked like. When he finally switched it off in his apartment the night before the lecture, the mirror showed him a stranger, a young man with brown hair and dark eyes that had seen too much sorrow. He was human, and tomorrow the entire galaxy would know. Minji and Sora had their own preparations to make. While Do-Hyun hijacked the broadcast system, they would create distractions to delay security response. Yunho would have his cargo ship ready for a quick escape once the truth was revealed. They all knew this plan would probably end with their capture or death, but Earth's freedom was worth that sacrifice. The day of the lecture arrived gray and quiet. Do-Hyun went through his normal maintenance routine, checking systems and preparing equipment. To everyone around him, he appeared to be just another worker doing his job, but hidden in his tool belt was the storage device containing proof. That would change galactic history. 2 hours before the lecture, Do-hyun made his way to the Academy's communications center. The facility controlled all broadcasts that went out from the Academy to the rest of the galaxy. Massive transmitters and satellite arrays carried signals to hundreds of worlds. The communications center was heavily secured, but Do-hyun's maintenance access allowed him inside. He told the technicians he was there to check the ventilation system before the big broadcast. Nobody questioned him. While the technicians focused on their preparations, Do-hyun quietly connected his storage device to the main broadcast computer. The evidence files were copied into the system's memory, ready to be transmitted when he gave the signal. He also made a subtle change to the broadcast controls. Instead of only Professor Veltak having access to the visual displays, any signal from Do-hyun's portable transmitter would override the system. With the technical preparations complete, Do-hyun made his way to the grand amphitheater. Thousands of students had already filled the massive room. The excitement was obvious. Professor Veltak's lectures were always popular, and this topic promised to be especially interesting. Do-hyun climbed into the same ventilation shaft where he had first heard the lies about Earth's destruction. But this time, he was not hiding. This time, he was going to fight back. Professor Veltak entered the amphitheater to enthusiastic applause. His purple skin gleamed under the bright lights, and his 6 arms moved gracefully as he acknowledged the crowd's welcome. Today we explore the tragic fate of civilizations that challenge the natural order, Veltak announced, his deep voice carrying clearly through the room. Species that grew too quickly, expanded too aggressively, and ultimately paid the price for their arrogance. Do-hyun gripped his portable transmitter tightly. Not yet. He needed to wait for the right moment. Let us begin with the Kalahari of the Outer Rim, Veltak continued, activating his holographic display. These beings developed advanced technology at an unprecedented rate. Within 2 centuries, they went from primitive agriculture to interstellar travel. The professor showed images of the Kalahari homeworld, or at least what the audience was told was the Kalahari homeworld. Do-hyun recognized the images from the surveillance files they had stolen. This was another living world that the hegemony claimed was dead. Unfortunately, the Kalahari's rapid advancement led to environmental catastrophe, Veltak explained. Their industrial development poisoned their atmosphere. Their population died out within decades. More lies. According to the surveillance data, the Kalahari were alive and working in hegemony mining operations. Professor Veltak continued his lecture, describing the supposed deaths of species after species. Each story followed the same pattern: rapid development, environmental disaster, complete extinction. The audience listened with fascination and sadness. Finally, Veltak reached the part of his lecture that Do-hyun had been waiting for. But perhaps no extinction is more tragic than that of the humans of Earth, the professor said solemnly. This species showed remarkable potential for creativity and adaptation. In just a few thousand years, they developed art, science, and technology that impressed even advanced civilizations. The holographic display showed Earth as Do-hyun remembered it, green and blue and beautiful. The sight filled him with both joy and rage. Sadly, human ambition exceeded their wisdom, Veltak continued. They pushed their sun beyond its natural limits through reckless energy harvesting. The resulting stellar collapse destroyed their homeworld and every human in existence. That was the moment Do-hyun had been waiting for. He activated his transmitter and spoke into the small microphone he had hidden in his tool belt. "That is a lie," his voice echoed through the amphitheaters. Sound system, startling students and faculty. Professor Veltak looked around in confusion, trying to identify the source of the interruption. "Earth was not destroyed," Do-hyun continued, his voice growing stronger. "Humans are not extinct. I know this because I am human, and I was born on Earth 50 years ago." Gasps and murmurs filled the amphitheater. Some students stood up to get a better look around the room. Professor Velthak frantically tried to regain control of his presentation equipment. Do-Yun dropped down from the ventilation shaft onto the amphitheater's main stage. Without his genetic mask, his human features were clearly visible to everyone in the room. His brown hair and dark eyes marked him as definitely not a mixed-species hybrid. Security guards began moving toward the stage, but thousands of students blocked their path. Everyone wanted to see the human who had just claimed his species was still alive. "I have proof," Do-Yun announced, holding up his transmitter. "Real surveillance footage from Earth, taken just days ago." He activated the broadcast override he had installed earlier. The holographic display above the stage changed from Professor Velthak's prepared presentation to the surveillance files from the monitoring station. Earth appeared in 3 dimensions above the amazed crowd, but it was not the dead world that Professor Velthak had described. Industrial complexes covered much of the surface. Cargo ships moved between the planet and orbital stations. Millions of lights showed where human cities still thrived. "This is Earth today," Do-Yun said. "Very much alive, very much inhabited. My people have been enslaved by the hegemony for 50 years while the galaxy was told we were extinct." The crowd erupted in chaos. Some students shouted questions. Others argued that the images must be fake. Faculty members demanded security remove the intruder, but many just stared in shock at the proof that one of the galaxy's most accepted facts was completely false. Professor Velthak finally managed to approach a microphone. "This is obviously a terrorist hoax," he declared. "Everyone knows humans are extinct. These images are computer-generated fabrications." "Then explain this," Do-Yun replied, switching the display to show hegemony documents about the final harvest. Plan. Official orders to relocate Earth's population to work camps within 2 years. The documents were clearly genuine, with authentic hegemony security codes and administrative signatures. Even the most skeptical observers had to admit they looked real. More surveillance footage followed. Images from 17 other worlds that were supposed to be dead. The Kalahari homeworld, thriving with millions of inhabitants. The crystal cities of Nexus 7, still glowing with their residents' bioluminescent light. The forest worlds of the green folk, green and growing despite reports of ecological collapse. "The hegemony has been lying to you about all of these civilizations," Do-Yun said. "They isolate species that threaten their control, exploit their resources, and tell the galaxy they are extinct. How many other worlds have they hidden? How many other species have they enslaved?" The questions hung in the air like weapons. Students from dozens of species looked at each other with new suspicion and fear. If the hegemony could lie about something this big, what else were they hiding? Security guards finally reached the stage, but several faculty members stood in their way. "Let him finish," demanded Dr. Corinth, the Academy's head of xenobiology. "If this evidence is fake, it can be disproven through investigation. If it is real, we need to hear all of it." Do-Hyun used the brief reprieve to show the most damaging evidence. Communication intercepts from Earth's population. Human voices speaking in their native languages, reporting to hegemony overseers about mining quotas and production schedules. People who had no idea that the rest of the galaxy existed and believed they were the last survivors of a cosmic war. "These are my people," Do-Yun said, his voice breaking with emotion. "They have been told that you are all dead, that they are alone in the universe. Meanwhile, you have been told that they are dead. The hegemony profits from both lies. By now, the broadcast had reached millions of viewers across the galaxy, in dormitories and classrooms, on cargo ships and research stations. Beings were watching a human prove that his species still existed. The implications were staggering. Professor Velthak made one final attempt to discredit the revelation. Even if these images are real, they prove nothing. Perhaps some humans survived the destruction of Earth and established colonies elsewhere. "No," Do-Hyun replied firmly. This is Earth, the third planet of the Sol system, the world where humans evolved. I was born in the northern continent in a city called Sol. I played in parks that you can see in these images. I went to school in buildings that still exist. He paused and looked directly at the thousands of faces staring up at him. I am proof that everything the hegemony told you about human extinction is a lie. And if they lied about us, what else have they lied about? The question echoed through the amphitheater and across the galaxy. On hundreds of worlds, beings who had accepted hegemony authority without question began to wonder what other truths had been hidden from them. But even as Do-hyun savored this moment of revelation, he knew it was also the moment of greatest danger. The hegemony would not allow this truth to spread without a fight. Security forces were already surrounding the academy. Soon, much more. Dangerous enemies would arrive to silence the human who had dared to speak the truth. The battle for Earth's freedom had only just begun. The revelation at the Galactic Academy changed everything within hours. Across hundreds of worlds, beings who had watched Do-hyun's broadcast began demanding answers from their governments. Students organized protests demanding investigation into other supposedly extinct species. Some faculty members called for complete reform of the hegemony's historical records. But the hegemony's response was swift and violent. Within 6 hours of the broadcast, hegemony military ships surrounded the academy. Admiral Korax, the regional commander, demanded that Do-hyun and his accomplices surrender immediately. When the academy's administrators refused to hand them over, the hegemony declared the entire facility a terrorist stronghold. Do-hyun watched the military buildup from Yunho's cargo ship, hidden in the asteroid belt near the academy's location. They had escaped just minutes before the hegemony blockade closed around the station. "How many ships?" Sora asked, studying the tactical display. 47 warships, Yunho replied grimly, plus support vessels and troop transports. They are not planning to negotiate. The hegemony began its assault on the academy 3 hours later. Their excuse was that the facility was harboring dangerous terrorists who threatened galactic security. But everyone knew the real reason. They were trying to silence the truth about Earth and the other hidden worlds. Students and faculty who tried to evacuate were detained and questioned. Those who supported Do-hyun's revelation were arrested as conspirators. Professor Velthak, revealed as a knowing participant in the deception, disappeared entirely. But something unexpected happened as the hegemony cracked down on the academy. Instead of intimidating other worlds into silence, the violence convinced many species that Do-hyun was telling the truth. If the evidence was fake, why would they attack an academy? Asked Dr. Yila, a respected scientist from the Centauri Collective, in a broadcast that reached billions of beings. Why not simply disprove the claims with their own evidence? Her questions were echoed across the galaxy. On Altair, the Planetary Council voted to demand a full investigation into hegemony historical records. On Vega Prime, massive protests called for truth and transparency in galactic government. Even some hegemony member worlds began questioning their loyalty. Most importantly, hidden humans across the galaxy began emerging from their secret lives. The first to reveal himself was Kang Jinwoo, an engineer working on a mining station in the Outer Rim. He had watched Do-hyun's broadcast and decided he was tired of hiding his identity. When he announced that he was human, his co-workers' initial shock turned into protection. They helped him contact other suspected humans on nearby worlds. Within days, hundreds of humans had revealed themselves across dozens of worlds. They formed communication networks and shared their stories of hiding and survival. Many had believed they were the only survivors of their species. Now they learned they were part of a scattered but resilient community. The hegemony tried to suppress these revelations, but their resources were stretched thin. Protests and uprisings were erupting on too many worlds to contain them all. Some member species began withdrawing their support entirely. "We have a chance," Sora told the group as they monitored galactic communications from their hidden ship. The hegemony is losing control of the narrative, but we need to act quickly before they regain their balance. What do you mean? Minji asked. We need to liberate Earth now while the galaxy is watching, Sora explained. If we wait, the hegemony will move the human population to those work camps and destroy all evidence. This is our only opportunity. The plan they developed was desperate but possible. A coalition of sympathetic species had begun organizing resistance fleets. The Altarians provided fast scout ships. The Centauri offered heavy cruisers. Even some former hegemony worlds contributed vessels and crews. Most importantly, hidden humans throughout the galaxy were joining the liberation effort. They knew the locations of hegemony installations and could provide intelligence about enemy movements. Some had been working on hegemony ships and stations for years without their employers knowing their true identity. The Liberation Fleet assembled in secret at coordinates provided by Yunho's smuggling network. When Do-hyun first saw the gathered ships, he could hardly believe his eyes. Over 300 vessels from 40 different species, all united by the desire to expose the truth and free the enslaved worlds. I never imagined this would grow so large, he told Minji as they watched the fleet formations through their ship's windows. You gave them something to fight for, she replied. Hope, truth, the chance to right a terrible wrong. The fleet's commander was Admiral Nexus of Altair, a veteran officer who had served with distinction in several previous conflicts. She had volunteered to lead the mission after learning that her own government had unknowingly participated in the hegemony's deception. Our objective is simple, Admiral Nexus announced during the final briefing. Break the quarantine around Earth, document the truth of what we find there, and broadcast it to the entire galaxy. The hegemony cannot continue their lies if everyone can see the evidence with their own eyes. The journey to Earth took 4 days through hyperspace. During the trip, Do-hyun worked with other human refugees to prepare what they might find. None of them had seen their homeworld in 50 years. They did not know what condition their people would be in or how they would react to sudden liberation. They may not trust us at first, warned Lee Soo-young, a human woman who had escaped Earth as a child. They have been told for decades that the outside galaxy is dead or hostile. They may see us as invaders rather than liberators. When the Liberation Fleet finally arrived edge of the Sol system, they found it heavily defended. Hegemony patrol ships surrounded Earth's solar system in multiple layers. Automated weapons platforms floated at strategic points. Warning buoys broadcast messages declaring the area off-limits to all civilian traffic. But the Liberation Fleet outnumbered the defenders by more than 2 to 1, and many of the hegemony crews were reluctant to fight for a cause they were beginning to doubt. The battle for Earth began at dawn on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. Admiral Nexus led the first wave of attacks against the outer defense perimeter, while faster ships darted through gaps in the hegemony formation. Do-hyun flew with a reconnaissance team headed directly for Earth's surface. Their mission was to make contact with the human population and document conditions on the planet. As their ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, Do-hyun saw his homeworld clearly for the first time in 50 years. The planet was scarred, but still beautiful. Vast mining operations covered what used to be forests, but green spaces still existed between the industrial complexes. Cities remained, though they were smaller and more controlled than he remembered. They landed near Seoul, the city where Do-hyun had been born. The area was now dominated by a massive processing facility, but residential areas still surrounded it. Humans in work uniforms moved between buildings, going about their daily tasks under the watchful eyes of hegemony supervisors. When Do-hyun and his team approached the residential district, the initial reaction was fear and confusion. The humans living there had never seen alien technology up close. They had been told that all aliens were either dead or hostile. "Please do not be afraid," Do-hyun called out in Korean, removing his helmet so they could see his human face. "We are here to help you. I am human. like you. My name is Lee Do-hyun, and I was born in this city." An elderly man stepped forward cautiously. His clothes were simple but clean, and his eyes showed the weariness of decades under foreign rule. "That is impossible," the man said. "All humans outside Earth died in the Great War. The hegemony told us so." "The hegemony lied to you," Do-hyun replied gently. "There was no Great War. The galaxy is alive and thriving. Millions of species live in peace across thousands of worlds. You have been kept isolated so the hegemony could exploit your labor and your planet's resources." More humans gathered around them, listening to this impossible conversation. Some argued that it must be a trick. Others asked careful questions about the outside galaxy. A few wept openly at the possibility that they were not alone in the universe. Breakthrough came when Do-hyun showed them recordings of the Liberation Fleet's arrival. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all working together to free Earth from hegemony control. The sight of so many different beings cooperating peacefully contradicted everything the humans had been told about a hostile, dead galaxy. "We want to take you home," Do-hyun explained. "Not to leave Earth, but to reclaim it as your own world. To govern yourselves and trade freely with other species. To be part of the galactic community as equals, not slaves." Similar scenes were playing out across Earth's surface as other liberation teams made contact with human settlements. Some communities welcomed the news eagerly. Others needed more time to accept that their entire understanding of the universe had been false. The most emotional moment came when the liberation forces reached the planet's communication center. For 50 years, Earth's population had been cut off from all outside contact. They had only received information that the hegemony wanted them to have. When the communication arrays were restored and connected to the galactic network, humans on Earth heard voices from across the galaxy. For the first time in decades, M